have eternity to know your flesh.
You're sure this is what you want?
It's what I've always wanted. I have to see. I have to know.
Oh my God.
This is mine. The God that sent me back. The God I serve in this world and yours. The God of flesh, hunger and desire. My God. Leviathan, Lord of the Labyrinth.
I had a visitor.
What? Here? Who?
It was my father.
Oh, Kirsty. We thought we'd lost you.
So sweet of you to come back.
I've come for my father!
I'm your doctor. I'm here to help. Your suffering will be legendary, even in hell.
Hellbound Hellraiser 2 hit the big screen in late December of 1988, originally commissioned while the first film was in production. The first movie Hellraiser was a surprise hit, and made about $14 million domestically, and gained a healthy profit in other territories. Tony Randall worked on the first movie, providing some uncredited work, and Clive Barker, the writer and director, gave the position of director to Tony for the sequel. The movie was literally released just over a year after the first Hellraiser, which always makes me worried, because it just stinks of being rushed and a quick money grab. The budget hasn't been revealed, but it was originally green-lit with a decent amount, but was reduced by New World Pictures, who were having financial issues. New World was originally set up by Roger Corman, but the company changed hands during the 80s. The new owners made some financial blunders, which reduced its spending on feature films. Hellraiser did just a little bit less than the first film, and critical responses were very mixed. Some praised it for its scope and design for a low-budget movie, but many commented on its incoherent plot and over-reliance on violence. Kirsty's father, Larry, was supposed to return, written before Andrew Robinson declined to reprise his role. Many reasons were given for this, including disagreement over fees and a clash of schedules, although nothing has ever been confirmed, so they had to quickly change the story and have Larry's brother Frank tricking Christy to visit him in hell. Hellbound was supposed to be Pinhead's last appearance in a Hellraiser film, since the director and crew expected Julia to become the figurehead of the picture and take the franchise on. The end scene with the Pillars of Souls was originally meant to be Julia, raising fully formed from the mattress, opening her mouth, from which black light shoots out and fills the screen. However, Claire Higgins decided she did not want to return to the character again, and declined to make a further sequel. Because the film was commissioned within a week of Hellraiser's release and its strong returns, the producers did not realise the full extent of Pinhead's popularity until after Hellbound's completion. After the realisation of Pinhead's popularity, it was decided he would become the main focus and recurring character of the franchise. With the movie taking place directly after the original, it starts in the past in the late 1920s or early 30s. British Army captain Elliot Spencer opens a puzzle box. Hooked chains emerge, ensnaring him, and the forces inside the box transform him into the Cenobite, Pinhead. In the 1980s, Kirsty awakes in the Channard Institute, a psychiatric hospital where she is questioned about the events leading up to the destruction of her home, which involved her stepmother Julia and a bloody mattress. Kirsty tells the police that her uncle Frank opened a puzzle box to an alternative dimension populated by monsters named Cenobites, and then it recounts the events in the first film. Kirsty's story amazes the detectives, and they take the bloody mattress as evidence. Kirsty is then turned over to Dr. Philip Channard and his assistant Kyle, who instantly becomes smitten with Kirsty. That night, Kirsty befriends another patient, Tiffany, a semi-catatonic young girl with an incredible skill for solving puzzles. Later in her room, Kirsty finds a message written in blood stating, "I am in hell, help me." Believing it was sent by her father, Kirsty tells her story to Carl, who encourages her to tell Dr. Chenard about the Xenobites. Unbeknownst to Carl, Dr. Chenard already knows everything that's been happening. He is obsessed with the Lambert configuration, the box that opens a portal to the Xenobite realm, and has been collecting every piece of information he can obtain on it. Carl goes to Dr. Chenard's house to speak with him, and discovers his treasure room of Xenobite-related paraphernalia. Carl hears Chenard returning home. The doctor managed to obtain the bloody mattress that Julia died on from the police, and he lets a psychiatric patient mutilate himself on it. The blood summons up a skinless Julia from the Xenobite realm, and she proceeds to consume the psychiatric patient to nourish herself. Carl escapes and tells Kirsty, who encourages Carl to help her break out of the Institute so she can help stop the Xenobite Julia. At the house, Kirsty explores the treasure room where she discovers and takes a photo of Elliot Spencer. Meanwhile, Carl encounters Julia, now almost fully restored to her human form. Julia seduces Carl and begins devouring him when they kiss, thus completing her regeneration. Kirsty stumbles upon the scene, but her reunion with Julia is interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Chenard with Tiffany. Dr. Chenard gives Tiffany the puzzle box, where she quickly opens the Xenobite realm. The Xenobites Pinhead and his henchmen, Chatterer, Butterball and the female arrive, but refrain from harming Tiffany, knowing that Dr. Chenard forced her to summon them there. Meanwhile, Tiffany, Dr. Chenard and Julia all slip into the Xenobite realm, followed by Kirsty. The strongest aspect of the movie is its makeup effects and general visual design of the Xenobites. The biggest appeal of the franchise is the design of Pinhead and his demonic team. Apparently some of the fans were upset when they gave the Xenobite, called the Chatterer, eyes later on during the production because the actor in the makeup wanted to improve his vision. It's unfortunate and pretty bad when it comes to continuity. The design for the Dr. Chenard Xenobite I think is easily the creepiest character out of the bunch. His transformation is pretty harsh and disgusting, and those images really stuck in my mind when I first saw it. He is definitely the scariest aspect of the sequel. The production design, especially of Hell, borrowed a lot from the artist Escher. The maze-like labyrinth you can see is clearly inspired from the artist's work. The matte paintings of Hell show the great use of Escher. The mattes still hold up really well in high definition, and there are a few simple rotoscope animated effects near the end, which work well. The stop motion effects on the Doctor's tentacles are ambitious, but due to the limited budget they do look very dated and don't look that smooth with its frame rate. That said, it still looks interesting, but more time and money could have made something more fluid. The composer Christopher Young returns to score the sequel and provides a more bombastic and larger sounding score than the previous movie to naturally accommodate the hellish landscape. Chris is often the go-to guy for horror-related soundtracks. He recently worked with Sam Raimi on Spider-Man 3 and Drag Me to Hell. The soundtrack is actually very difficult to track down. It's been out of print for years. You can find copies online, but they often go for high prices. If you can find it, or some samples online to listen to, it's a very enjoyable score and provides a large scope to a very low-budget film. Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert both gave Hellraiser 2 negative reviews, and it even made their list of the worst movies of the year. Roger Ebert does provide a funny review though.
I love the names of the characters in this movie, by the way. They're named Kirsty and Tiffany. I love them because this is another one of those movies where they say the names way too often, over and over again. Kirsty, Tiffany, Tiffany, Kirsty, Kirsty, Tiffany, over and over. Just until the audience is almost tempted to start shouting Tiffany and Kirsty back at the screen, if only to break the monotony.
Or to continue it.
Or to continue the monotony. Good point. The problem here is that there is no discernible beginning, middle, or end to this nightmare, just a series of disconnected and gruesome scenes. It's the kind of film where the theater doesn't need to print the running times. They don't have to put that in the newspaper because you can walk in anywhere and have more or less the same experience. The technical credits are good, but I really think they should have gone to the trouble of providing us with a story.
I want to focus on one word that you mentioned, which is gruesome. I mean, this film could be actually titled Skinned Alive. I mean, you see enough blood and bare skin, or the sublayer of skin to then, you know, in a butcher shop. I mean, it's fairly repellent as these kinds of things go. We're sort of inured to it. We see this stuff all the time, but at the same time, buckets of blood.
It does set some kind of a record. You know, images like this in medieval times were the stuff of Hieronymus Bosch painting. scenes, and people were absolutely horrified. Now it's just fodder for public entertainment, and kids go in and look at people flayed alive and dripping their organs all over the place, and they just laugh at it. No images seem to have any power anymore.
I saw Hellraiser 2 in my early teens late one night on TV, and to be honest, I was shocked by the level of violence, and there is an unsettling atmosphere to the film. I revisited Hellraiser 1 and 2 recently, and to be honest, they're not that scary. There is one or two jump scares, and the Dr. Cenobite is very creepy. I wouldn't recommend anyone let their young kids or teenagers watch these films, because it would scare them. But for an adult, that scare factor doesn't really work. Its strong points is its gore and the visual design of the Cenobites. The idea of the box opening up a gateway to hell is a very interesting idea that was explored well in the first movie, and it was only logical for the writer and director to go into hell for the sequel to expand more upon the backstory of the characters. The creator Clive Barker had said he explored the backstory of Pinhead, but it wasn't developed for the original movie, so the ideas were implemented into the sequel and explored more in the third movie. Some people may prefer not to know Pinhead's background and may want him just to be a demon that wasn't human. The movie plays out like Return of the Jedi, where he realises he was once good and remembers his past. It's interesting to see the Cenobites take on the Doctor to save Kirsty, in a way making them to be the good guys, but it's so quickly handled and rushed, it's a bit of a letdown. The photography is splendid and has a great contrast and depth to its visual design. For a low budget movie, it looks far more expensive. Tony Randall as a director likes to shoot everything in close-ups and uses a lot of wide-angle compositions for the establishing shots, which works in the movie's favour. Doug Bradley as Pinhead does another fantastic performance, and it is a shame the Cenobites are only in the movie for like 20 minutes tops. What also confused me in the series is that it takes a little bit of blood to bring back a skinless human, but then you have to kill a number of people to regenerate your skin. In Hellbound, Julia kills loads of people to bring herself back to normal. The end sequence made me laugh when Kirsty tricks the Doctor and wears the skin of Julia. It's totally ridiculous, and the idea of just slipping into someone else's skin is so far-fetched, it's laughable. Hellraiser 2 is probably the best of the sequels. It all got a bit silly from number 3 onwards. It has some original ideas and it's visually confident in its genre, and respect needs to be shown for the makeup artist who worked on the film. But unfortunately its story is very weak, and the direction nothing really special. It starts out well with the Doctor's fascination with the box, but I wish it was explored more. It's unfortunate it goes with most horror films, you can't spend too long going into depth about its story, because at the end of the day the general public want to be scared, and you have to keep the pace of the movie going, and film distributors need to make money back on their investment, and its running time is always limited, so I understand that process. But it's a shame when a movie like Hellraiser that has great ideas that can't be explored in greater detail. Once Tiffany enters hell, it just falls apart and feels like you're missing loads of scenes. This has scene after scene of the two girls running down corridors. Not the most exciting direction to take a sequel. There has been talk of a remake for ages, but nothing has really got off the ground. It wouldn't concern me too much if they did one. They could explore more of the Cenobites and possibly combine the ideas in the first movie and the sequel into one 2-hour movie. It depends who interests you more, the characters that interact with the box or the Cenobites themselves. For something to watch one evening with friends, it can be enjoyed with a group of people. There is obviously gross out scenes, but also some funny stuff down to its execution of the final confrontation between the Cenobite Doctor and Tiffany. It's certainly not a terrible movie and shouldn't be ignored for its poor narrative. There is still some great stuff to enjoy from it, but as a sequel it is a letdown, and to many horror fans it's just a guilty pleasure.
Time to play.
Wait.
No more deals, Kirsty. It's your flesh we want to experience, not your skill at bargaining.
No deal. Just information. Just information.
Go on. But trick us again, child. And your suffering will be legendary. What is this? Someone else, do you think, escaped us?
This one didn't escape. And it's you.
Nonsense.
It's you! You haven't always been this way. You were human.
I'm taking over this operation.